All right, everybody. Like I said, sometimes when you start thinking about things, it just keeps coming to you. So here we go, some more. This will be just a quick one though here. Anyway, this will be warning all politicians running for president 2024, part 141B, because I did 141, 141A, and this will be B. If the sea were ink and the sky or the heavens parchment, you could not write or contain all the words of God. That's a verse from the Quran. So for those of us who've been guilty, and some who still are guilty of thinking you know it all from that book that you have, you're not being reasonable or logical or thinking. If the sea were ink and the sky or the heavens were parchment, you could not write all the words of God that God has spoken. So I know the Hindu texts are vast when you look at them compared to the Bible or the Quran, and maybe to other writings. But even all that they have cannot contain all the words of God. So this is I'm going back to with, don't let people make you afraid to read other books. There's so much more to the story, to the journey, to the wonder. Do you understand? There is so much more. Now, it's impossible for, I know at least myself anyway. I've memorized a lot of scripture, but I'm not one of those people that can, what's that guy in Canada, Van Impe, where he goes, Luke verse 13, 6, whatever, and he supposedly can quote the whole Bible. I know there are people who say they can do that, and then there's also people, even schools, who will test people on their memorization of the Quran. I can remember verses and stuff from the Quran, but I couldn't tell you this is Surah such and such, what have you, and I can't quote numbers and stuff from verses from the Bible, but I do remember passages. So even if you could memorize all the text that we have right now and gain a great understanding, you still ain't even close. But even if you cross-reference a little here and there, and you get a better understanding, and I believe that leads to a better spirituality, closer to your Lord, if you will, that have it that way, put that way. But like, there are 7 heavens or 7 realms, and how high you get, and if you go from one to the next, I believe will depend on that knowledge opening up your spirituality and seeing things from different perspectives, and Because if you're still down here just dragging your knuckles and meat and potatoes and this is all you know and this and that, you're not evolving. You are not evolving in understanding. And I'm telling you, sometimes your worst enemy can be that religious teacher that you listen to all the time, who's got you, you're just focused in on those lessons, them Bible studies or what have you, or within Islam, that certain scholar, this guy, he's on YouTube all the time, or somebody. Move forward. Move forward. Go to the next level. Try to garner more understanding of the world and of humanity and the universe around you. Move forward. There's so many, and I've been distracted with all this politics and stuff. There's so many things to keep you distracted. And it's suppressing your spirituality and your heart and your understanding. And it can be, it can be music, it can be, sports, it can be politics, it can be work, it can be, money, lust, what have you. And I know it can be awfully hard to set aside some time to try and get some quiet time and time to try to read and to try and understand things. And then especially if you're surrounded by people who don't have any inclination, don't care, don't want to know, don't anything like that in your life, especially in your own family, even in your own marriage. Somebody might get upset because you read something else. Those are decisions you have to make. They're your calls. There's a verse, Jesus said about praying in your closet. So if you got to keep your learning secret or what have you, I guess that's fine. But myself just sitting here thinking about, the seven heavens and everything that occurred to me, the verse from the Quran, that if, the seas were ink and the heavens parchment, you couldn't write all the words of God or contain them. So anyone who tells you they've got it all sewn up, just shrug it off, whatever, unless you want to make a scene. But anyway, that being said, speaking of the Baha'i faith and Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah wrote volumes upon volumes upon volumes, much of which is still being translated to this day, and this was like 200 years ago. So that coincides also to, if the sea was ink and the sky was parchment, you could not write all the words of God. But there is more. He didn't go to sleep. All right, he didn't get to some point and just say, that's it. There's a purpose and a journey for humanity. If you're a Star Trek nerd or something, that reaching, or whatever it was that said, you got to reach that level 1 society before, you get contact. Well, I think reaching that level 1 of humanity and spirituality is better understanding and reading some of those other words of God that might shed some light on the parts of your book that you don't understand. Or you, from knowing your book, when you read that other book, you might be able to shed some light to them. But just think about that for 1 second. If the sea was ink and the sky was parchment, you couldn't contain or you couldn't write all the words of God. Doesn't that get your mind going, holy mackerel, the possibilities, the stories that we don't know, the understandings that we don't have, the maybe the possibility of understanding the next realms or dimensions or other life in the universe or the angelic world or the what have you. Understanding about our own selves. I mean, we take for granted, we don't pay too much attention about it, but just the fact to look up in the night sky on a clear night, not like tonight, you can be bewildered and be amazed and just be like, but not many people do. They take it for granted, and plus a lot of people are blocked out by city lights anymore anyhow. But you want to see something amazing, take some kid from the city sometime, take them way out in the country, away from all the lights and everything, or up in the mountains on a clear night, and let them look at all the stars that they've never seen because they've been in the city their whole lives. It's absolutely amazing. Pictures and books don't do it justice. But think how vast and how never-ending all that is and everything. And then you think if the words of God are that vast and never-ending, the possibilities, the journeys for humanity, even in just wonderment and knowledge, and I'm not necessarily talking, scientific knowledge or this or that, but I mean just anything about us, anything about, Jesus or the creation, and being able to piece things together and go, oh, now I'm kind of seeing more of it. And where would that knowledge take us scientifically, etc., and what have you? If anything, or medically, cures for diseases, but there's so many things. Like I said, Genesis talks about the separation of the waters from above and below, and the vault of heaven, and such. And if you look at the Hindus, the writings they have, and like I said, this guy was talking about the heavens and the different celestial bodies, and you can even find reference to that in the Gospels about wandering stars and etc., and in the Book of Enoch. So, and this all just reminded me too of there's a song Robert Plant sings on his Fate of Nations album, and which that whole album is really good if you've never heard it. But he says something about the in one of the songs, I think it's I Believe, and he says something about the wonder of stories untold, something like that. I'll have to listen to it again. I ain't listened to it in a long time, but I've always thought he's been kind of a reflective and spiritual kind of guy when he wants to be, and despite all the reputation of the rock bands in the 70s and stuff, he's made his mistakes like everybody else has, so I don't fault him for that. Aren't we always taught to try and look for the good in people? I think a lot of preachers have forgotten that. So anyhow, there was even, Robert Plant had a tragedy in his life. His young son, who he loved dearly, and he's written songs dedicated to, passed away when he was a young child. And there were religious people, preachers, quote unquote preachers, in this country who at that time and after that time were, and hey, I'm not trying to justify rock stars' lives or every genre of music out there and everything, but these people, said his son dying was a punishment from God, because he associated with Jimmy Page, who was supposed to be some sort of devil worshiper, etc., blah 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 blah, what have you. Which is a bunch of hooey. So but anyhow, I just think most of the people who talk about love and understanding and stuff all the time can say and do some of the cruelest things. And if you look at the history of, the Spanish Inquisition and all kinds of other things like that, you can see that to be self-evident. So, however, not focusing on the bad parts of religion, but saying move forward, realize your humanity, and think about the wonderment and how much of the story is untold. And if you try and take some and can get some time out of your busy life to look into that, I'm sure you're not going to be disappointed. If you just look at the wonderment and the awesomeness of and the miracle of creation and the universe and all the stars and everything else, how could there be anything but wonderment, but enlightenment and joy from finding things out? So anyhow, I wanted to point that out. So always remember that if the sea was ink and the sky was parchment, you could not contain all the words of God, or write all the words of God. So why do you think one little book that you have is all that was said, that's ever been said? I used to wonder that when I was a Christian. I was like, this is it? Ain't there no more? You've just been teaching the same things. I mean, God didn't go to sleep. They act like, after the lives of the apostles, that's it. Until some great cataclysm and the return of Jesus. There's nothing else to learn. So, you know, you can only sit through so many sermons about the same thing. After a while, you're going, oh, I already know all this. Got anything else? Something new? So, you can continue your journey and find things new and find new light by reading other books and looking into their teachings. Don't let anybody make you afraid and say, oh, don't you read that book. There's only one God. Yeah, I know, and give me the Bible. I don't know about that. Where they got that stuff from over there. There's only one God. He gave them a book. He gave you people a book. He gave these other people a book. He's been teaching mankind since the beginning of time, even before that, you know, or the beginning of creation, even before, you know, what you know is creation. God only knows how many civilizations there've been on this earth. So, I started talking about the different planes on the ellipticals that the planets orbit on and stuff and everything like that, and about the verse about man being made lowest. Well, the Earth is the lowest out of everything in the solar system. It's just above the primordial stuff. Everything else is on a different elliptical plane. So is that a reference to that you know, the Earth used to be higher up, or is it just our status, or is it some kind of can it be cross-referenced to some kind of scientific thing about where the Earth is in relation to the orbits of the other planets? Anyhow, like I said, there's a lot of things, lots of stuff, something for everybody, for the scientific minds, for the spiritual minds. There's a lot of wonderment and knowledge and information and things for humanity that we can learn and move forward. So I'll leave you all with that, and just remember that the sea were ink and the sky were parchment. Wish you all the best out there. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one. Adios.